Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It's Tuesday, April 8th. Draft is nigh. The draft is nigh. We're going to talk about it a lot today because there's not a lot of news right now. The Bengals are hosting a lot of running backs. Has it never been more over for Chase Brown, Denny? Tyrone Tracy, never been more over. Rhamondre Stevenson, never been more over. Never been more over for you when Travis Hunter is an instant superstar. Denny is made his entire personality truthing Travis Hunter so far this spring. We'll see how that works out for him. Maybe some Tutu Atwell being used a lot more next season. Maybe sometimes some Jalen Naylor talk because we might have time because we're welcoming in our friend Lawrence Jackson. Then for more draft talk, he's going to talk Shedeur Sanders, kind of the lumps his draft stock's been taking lately. Jalen Milroe, whose perceived draft stock is on the way up. More Travis Hunter talk. Maybe some Omarion Hampton talk. Maybe some RB3 overall talk. But Denny, it's the Rotoworld Football Show. It's the draft. That means we have to begin the show by talking about why is every NBA team that is making the playoffs firing its head coach?
It seems unusual for teams to dismiss their head coach and in Denver, their GM as well, just before, like 15 minutes before the playoffs start. Really wondering what's going on there.
Yeah, quadruple header beginning on TNT actually right after this podcast is over, the first round of the playoffs. Now I think there's 3 games left. Yeah, I love to fire my coach and GM with 3 games left in the regular season before we attempt to win our second NBA title in 3 years. But yeah, who would ever guess Stan Kroenke being cheapskate? Because it sounds like a lot of the ball knowers tell me that a lot of the Nuggets problems, that was too mean of a word, by the way, a lot of the Nuggets problems stem from old Stan, who is my bitter personal enemy.
Of course. Now, it goes without saying.
Old Stan is apparently refusing to pay, really dip into the luxury tax. And that is really at the origin of all the Nugs problems. But I don't know, they've been looking really good lately, or so I've been told. The Grizzlies fired Taylor Jenkins, who I definitely knew his name when they fired him.
All I saw every time I would turn on SportsCenter, I'd see him running onto the court screaming. And that's the only way I knew that guy.
Yeah. And two, I mean, the NBA, every league has this problem now except for the NFL. There's not even really any need to know the coach anymore.
Yeah.
They're handed a printout by the front office. The NBA, it says shoot 1 million corner threes.
Yeah.
And
I just real quick before we get into the football, I attended a Washington Wizards game a couple weeks ago, and neither team, the Pacers nor the Wizards, had what you would call an offense. You bring the ball down the court and then you shoot it immediately from 5 feet behind the 3-point line, or you give it to the big guy and he dunks, and that's it. That's the entire game. There's
Denny would be a mid-range jumper lover.
No. Totally against on an analytical level. From a nostalgia level, I'm all for it. Give me the Charles Oakley 14-footer.
Yes, exactly. To me, it's the most efficient shot.
It is.
I want my 2 to be as long as possible.
It is the least efficient shot. Yeah. It is terrible. You should never, ever take a long 2-pointer, but you knew that.
When I'm coaching my children's teams, I'm like, guys, listen, a lot of sports is about zigging when they zag. Everyone now wants layups and threes. Guess what our offense is called? The longest 2 possible.
I want your toes on that line.
Exactly. I want your toe touching the 3-point line.
That's right.
Because there is no 2 that is long enough.
Yeah, that's analytics.
And if you hit a 3, you are getting benched. By the way, also in basketball, listen, I'm a card-carrying member of Cougars Nation, Houston. Yikes. Card-carrying member, of course, because I may or may not have had financial ramifications stemming from the national
I couldn't figure that one out. Okay.
I would have maybe, if it were me, not ended the game with 3 straight devastating turnovers. Is what I would have maybe not done if I were the Houston Cougars.
Was that game last night?
I thought you like sports. You like sports?
I like some sports a lot.
You don't watch the national title game anymore?
I didn't even know it was on. I'm sorry.
What?
I was watching X-Files. I don't know what you want.
Producer Adam, also a member of Coug Nation, and we are in shambles today. We are in absolute shambles. I was watching it with my family, and it was, I didn't get excited till, I don't know, they've been leading the first 37 minutes without ever trailing. I'm like, all right, this might actually happen, and then it did.
Houston is a big analytics geek team.
No, not that I can tell. No, they're a beat you up on defense team.
Oh, that's terrible. Oh, yeah, I'm glad they lost.
beat you up on defense team. You're glad this game last night, we're going to talk about the NFL now, but one of the most hilarious stats I've ever heard in my life. The first half was the true, wow, they're really letting them play, like hitting each other with like sledgehammers. Called 4 total fouls in the first half, not a misprint.
Wow.
23 fouls in the second half. So no one's ever accused college sports of having good refereeing. But yeah, Cougars, you owe me for that one. That's all I'm going to say. Chase Brown, you're going to owe us for this one. If someone comes in and makes this a committee backfield, the Bengals are hosting a lot of the top running back names available. They're not in a position for Ashton Jeanty or Omarion Hampton, Denny, but they've hosted Quinshad Judkins. Sorry, still working on that one. Travion Henderson, things of that nature. I don't know. Visits are not tantamount to a draft pick, of course. Teams are allowed to have 30 visits. They're clearly doing their due diligence on their backfield. If Chase Brown, say, a round 3 running back comes in, what's the panic level? What's the danger level in fantasy football?
Round 3, panic levels at a 5. I'm just gonna completely sell out and just say 5 because it's definitely not over 5. It probably isn't under 5, but it could be. Chase Brown's a good back. Like he's a good all around back. I would be surprised if the Bengals are like determined to get another back in that backfield. Although it could be just strictly for RB2 purposes behind Brown, since they don't really have anybody behind him right now. I don't think Zach Moss is signed even going into this year.
He's not. They have Samaje Perine. They did reunite with Samaje Perine. Sorry,
they did. Right. Perine just bounces between the Bengals and the Chiefs now.
You had already said that. I didn't hear you because this is not a joke. I was daydreaming about the Houston Cougars. And,
yeah, man, you're messed up on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just sort of just noting these things, but not really too worried. Judkins kind of a pretty good profile overall. His yards per route run as a pass catcher are pretty poor, and Chase Brown's pretty good at the pass catching, so I'm not too worried.
I'm on Samaje Perine's Wikipedia. This is one of the headers. Cincinnati Bengals, parentheses, third stint. Third stint. So I absolutely love to have. This is one of my favorite Wikipedia subheads. Another one I've always gotten a big kick out of Bill Parcells has a third retirement. This is Wikipedia. One of my favorite.
Bill Parcells retired every time he had a bad season.
He did. He really did.
By the way, speaking of running backs, just real quick, I read in The Athletic today that the Raiders' new GM said that his 10-year-old son threatened to leave the family if the team did not take Ashton Jeanty in the first round. So we're looking strongly into taking Ashton Jeanty if you're the Raiders.
Is his 10-year-old son named Peter Carroll?
He
meant 10 at heart.
Yeah, no, and he said, but my son, he's actually said this. He said, my son only cares about fantasy stuff. So he said, my son has fantasy in bio. And I was like, that's a good kid.
Well, my son has fantasy, but the Bengals, to bring this full circle, I know they have a lot of needs. I can't say I would use a day 1 or 2 pick on a running back when Chase Brown appears to be perfect. I know I've been extolling the virtues of, instead of having a replacement level running back, what if you had an actually good running back? But I think the Bengals are a team that would be just fine with a replacement level running back in 2025. And I think Chase Brown's a little bit better than a replacement level running back. It would be quite a shame, but it would be quite over if it was a day 1 or 2 pick joining Mr. Chase Brown. Then is Tyrone Tracy shaping up to be like a dynasty league asset that never was, where really, really star-crossed 2024, had some big weeks, had some even lower lows, though. Giants beat writer Art Stapleton reports the team is doing a lot of homework on running backs ahead of the draft. It's not like we were already nervous about Tyrone Tracy, but is this already just one of those really unfortunate things where you thought maybe you had a big dynasty league steal after 1 year? We're already admitting that it's probably not a thing, especially for a guy who's turning 26 in November.
Right. The age is a big factor here. I'm glad you mentioned that. So Tracy, converted from wide receiver to running back. And so the idea going
never works.
Yeah, right. It doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. Never works.
Beat me to my second point. The first point. No, it's fine. It's fine. No, we have to get that out of the way. That never works. Also, He was a bad pass catcher last year. So the idea was that
that's always also happens too. I'm sorry to cut you off for the second time in 2 seconds. One, it never works. The off chance it somehow does work, they magically forget like how to catch passes. Like he's a receiver, so they love his hands out of the backfield as it hits him like right in the face.
He struggled with drops last year. I remember you cursed me with covering a Giants game at some point last year. And this guy coming out of the backfield was lost. Just the quarterback was like, I don't know what you're doing. Like you're supposed to block that guy. Why are you even out in a route? So a lot of confusion there. His yards per route run, just to put some stats on it, his yards per route run was a little bit worse than Devin Singletary, who is also a terrible pass catcher. 36th out of 50 qualifying running backs. So if that didn't happen, if the pass catching thing didn't happen for Tracy, then it wasn't going to happen, period, I think.
That's true. And his big problem really is the age, not just from like an athletic standpoint. He could be in a really imposing athletic prime for 3 or 4 more years, but I'd have to think the Giants were thinking, okay, this guy's 25. When you draft a 25-year-old, you're definitely hoping there's something of a finished product. And especially if you're drafting a 25-year-old running back, you're hoping they do the little things well, aka maybe catch some passes, maybe throw some blocks and pass protection. Definitely do not fumble 5 times. And the fact that he came into the league at such an advanced age and just was not polished is what's probably really going to doom him, and probably why the Giants are looking to add to their backfield.
I mean, I get the interest going into last year, and I had him on a few teams, and I was excited when he was overtaking Singletary, who I guess I was more on the Singletary side of things, but nevertheless, and so I was excited too, but it does not look like a long-term arrangement there.
No, it does not look like a long-term arrangement. Devin Singletary, by the way, do you know what team he's on right now?
Yeah.
Potentially a trick question, by the way.
He's on no team.
No, he's still on the Giants. I'm dead serious. I was actually not sure. He is still on the New York Giants.
Yeah. Well, Brian Daboll does love him some Devin Singletary.
He does. Brian Daboll absolutely loves the 2026 coaching carousel that he's going to be on after the season. No offense to Brian Daboll. Lots of offense, apparently, to Rhamondre Stevenson from this new Patriots coaching staff, where ESPN's Mike Reese really has his finger on the pulse of the Pats. Believes they're going to target a pass-catching running back in this year's draft, Denny. And, curious because Rhamondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, they're both supposed to be pass-catching running backs. Rhamondre was extended for some reason, and one of just the worst extensions in recent NFL memory. Again, truly, no offense to Rhamondre, but didn't make sense from like the second the ink dried. And this report to me is particularly concerning because, Josh McDaniels, talk about a third stint, is back for a third stint with the New England Patriots. He actually coached Rhamondre Stevenson as a rookie in 2021. He didn't use him as a pass catcher. He targeted him 18 times, caught 13 passes as a rookie. So to me, this reeks of, Josh doesn't think this guy can catch passes. Josh has a particular mold in mind when it comes to the third down back. Apparently Rhamondre doesn't fit it, Denny. I'm doing a lot of doom saying. Do you agree with this doom saying? And Rhamondre is another guy where it's not like fantasy managers were like, hell yeah, man, coming into the offseason. But instead of getting reasons to maybe rethink fading Rhamondre, we just seem to be only getting more and more reasons to do it.
He's on his way to being what we call in the industry a trap back, which means you get a bunch of touches. Yeah, I'm sorry, not touches. You get a bunch of carries between the 20s and all the cool stuff you're taken out of. You don't get any targets. You don't get any goal line looks. It's over for you. So I think that's what Rhamondre Stevenson looks like headed into 2025. And it looks to me like Mike Vrabel may have stumbled upon a spreadsheet because Stevenson had the second lowest yards per route run of any running back in the league last year. Only Jaleel McLaughlin was worse somehow. I don't know how McLaughlin's so bad. But so Stevenson truly abysmal type pass catcher out of the backfield. So yeah, I guess the Patriots are looking for someone to catch the ball out of the backfield.
I never even understood why they tried to make it happen because I feel like he was inefficient the entire time. And the Rhamondre Stevenson pass catcher thing just never worked, and they kept trying to do it and kept trying to do it. And yeah, it very much appears they're not going to keep doing it. I guess his hope would be if they're more efficient on third downs, it makes the entire offense more efficient, and he can be a more efficient runner on first and second down, and maybe that boomerangs back and helps him. But I totally agree. He's shaping up as a pure between the 20s guy. and just a no man's land pick in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Someone you're best off letting other people take.
I honestly, I mean, you're taking him in best ball as a flyer, I think, at this point.
I totally agree. Tell you you're not taking as a flyer is Travis Hunter. If you're using your number 2 overall pick on him, ESPN's Adam Schefter believes he's the most likely pick in number 2. And he also reports the Browns value Hunter's ability as a receiver more than his ability on defense. This may come as a shock to Denny, who thinks Travis Hunter can't catch the ball, isn't a good receiver. And,
I'm only asking questions. I thought that was still legal.
What questions are you asking about Travis Hunter? Why are you skeptical of maybe? And you can see how Travis Hunter becomes like an all-time real-life NFL trap pick, because there's zero question he's a special player and a special prospect. Like the concern is that 2025 is the wrong year to be caught between two positions. Everything is about, specialization, studying every single snap you've ever played, every single snap the other team has ever played. Can you really split time in the big leagues at this point? So you can see how his own versatility maybe works against him. That's just the narrative. What are you seeing in the data, Denny, with Travis?
Yeah, the data leaves a lot of questions, especially, there was only one other Colorado pass catcher last year who saw more than 65 targets. So we're not talking about a bunch of guys who competed for looks with Travis Hunter. And he was only targeted on 23% of his routes over the past 2 seasons in Colorado. Just to give some context, a guy like T. Mac McMillan, not Tet, was targeted on about 28% of his routes. So the other prospects were in the 27 to 30% range. The other top prospects, I should say. So there's a big gap there. And then you look at his yards after the catch production, honestly, and you can read the piece, everyone. If you want to go to rotoworld.com,
don't read it. Just
you can read the piece. His yards after the catch production was not pedestrian. It was way worse than that. And I just have questions that the Justin Jefferson comp is a little funny to me, because we're talking about a guy who's at least 16 pounds lighter than Jefferson was entering the league and an inch shorter. I don't, the size, the speed was probably not the same, although we never know, because it's, he didn't go to the combine. I know he had the workout day, but come on. I mean, those numbers are just completely fudged. And so I have questions about whether he can be a number 1. I think if he goes to Cleveland, he will not be the unquestioned number 1 target there.
I still feel like with Travis Hunter that it would be easier to be a full-time corner and then a package player on offense. So it is interesting. And that's not just a Travis thing. I just feel like that's an NFL in general thing, where you're going to have to focus full-time on something. Like the ins and outs of the defense, I just feel like his rare athletic ability and clearly his unreal instincts probably stand out more on defense. And then Deion Sanders, who coached him in college, he can come in and just be a package player, maybe a potential role-playing game breaker on offense. But it seems like most signs are pointing toward the opposite of that. And
I totally agree. I'm sorry, with the specialist role, Hunter was unreal metrics wise on deep balls the last 2 years. So that's a valuable high leverage role. I think that would be an interesting role for fantasy purposes. It would be real bad. Because it would be just super volatile, totally unpredictable week to week. But I also struggle to see how a team could not play him at cornerback. I mean, he, Pro Football Focus graded him as the second best cornerback in college football last year. He's really good.
He is, and it's just going to be a fascinating conundrum for. By the way, with Travis Hunter, basically you were describing an inefficient player.
Inefficient. Yeah.
I just wonder if inefficiency is more about that offense in general. They had really bad pass protection 2 years ago. I think it was better last year, but they ran a lot of plays. They were always in shootouts. I wonder if that just kind of colored maybe some of these metrics more than they otherwise would have. Where he's just super fascinating. We're gonna find out. Travis Hunter's an ultimate. We're gonna find out.
So I think there's a wider range of outcomes than folks would like to admit with Travis Hunter, and I think the floor is not necessarily all the way there compared to consensus.
Well, the floor is that he just doesn't have a natural position in the NFL. And so it's a scarily low floor. The ceiling is like you have someone who's going to play every snap on one side of the ball and then 20 or 30 snaps on the other side of the ball and be like Shohei Ohtani light, basically, for the modern age. And like we've never seen anything like it.
I think he'll be a fun
That really
player.
is the ceiling. That really is the ceiling.
I think he'll be a really fun player. I think he actually could be worth a top 5 pick if he's deployed mostly as a defensive back and maybe an offensive specialist. But fantasy purposes, that doesn't really, that doesn't catch the checks.
Who's also apparently a really fun player is Tutu Atwell. And more and more people are noticing, including Rams coach Sean McVay, that when Tutu actually plays, he tends to make big plays and actually does tend to produce. Like the second the Rams are at full strength, they don't feature Tutu Atwell. And then the second they're not, they do feature him, and he produces not like top 36, top 30 stuff in fantasy, but he does produce. Here's Sean McVay is taking notes, Denny. He says Tutu Atwell will be on the field a lot more next season. Cooper Kupp, of course, gone. The Rams need to dip more into their depth. Is this like coach speak? Is this the kind of thing that's going to disappear like the second they find somewhere better to funnel the targets to? Or is there actually reason to maybe be intrigued by more Tutu Atwell in fantasy football?
I don't think you're ever going to get away from the version of Tutu Atwell who has a real big game or gives you 0 points or 3 points in fantasy leagues, right? And especially playing alongside, a target black hole like Puka Nacua, someone who just commands targets at a league high rate. And that's not an exaggeration with Cooper Kupp on the field. So without Cooper Kupp, of course, you throw Devontae Adams in there, who's another target hog. The path to like a decent target share for Tutu Atwell, very narrow, I'd say.
Very, very narrow. I mean, do we like it in best ball, though? Could he be a classic better in best ball?
Absolutely, yes.
He is a ceiling player.
For sure. Yeah, here's what I would say. You could do worse than get a guy who sometimes is going to catch a 60-yard touchdown compared to maybe someone who's going around there who's more of a short area operator, and their upside is 4 catches for 35 yards. Like that's not Tutu Atwell's typical stat line. His stat line is 0 or it's 16 points, something like that.
You could do worse. The ultimate April analysis when we don't really have much to say and we know a player's just going to ultimately not.
That's it.
Well, whatever. He's not going to actually be good, but it's fine. Like you could do worse.
Probably.
and we could do worse than taking a short break. We'll be right back after this with Mr. Lawrence Jackson. The free NBC Sports Now channel is your home for NFL Draft Month with more than 100 hours of programming throughout April. Daily draft coverage includes PFT Live, The Dan Patrick Show, Chris Sims Unbuttoned, and Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Plus, tune in for NFL Draft ranking specials with Connor Rogers and updated mock drafts premiering every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information, go to NBCSports.com/now. And speaking of now, that's when Lawrence Jackson is going to join us. Lawrence, well, what's up? Lawrence knows a lot about the draft. He, unlike me, he knows who these guys actually are. I'm trying to learn. We're getting very, very close, of course, to Lambeau Field, Lawrence.
I don't know anything, Pat. I'm just the guy out here.
Well, never mind.
I'm just the guy on the Denver Nuggets basketball staff, hoping he don't get fired out here.
Yeah, well, Lawrence, you may not have heard this because you were prepping for our show. You have been named the next head coach of the Nuggets.
Yeah. I look forward to leading this team on into the playoffs this last week and hopefully making a run with a team that was ready-made for me.
If I were you as coach of the Nuggets, I would hand the ball to Nikola Jokic and be like, here, man, you do you.
Easy analysis right there.
If you're the coach, Lawrence, I need you to dare Jokic to dunk the ball.
Never that. We will not do that with our 7-foot basketball players ever.
Yes. Right.
And I need to also to dare Michael Porter Jr. to not be like the highest variance player in the history of the NBA. And to just actually be good and not do all the crazy bad stuff that you also do. But he does so much amazing stuff. He brings both shame and honor to the University of Missouri, where he went for 1 year.
He got a tattoo on his leg that say "Just shoot it."
I actually did not know that, but
I just made that up.
Yes, I would have believed it in 2 seconds. Michael Porter Jr. a very interesting guy. I would suggest going to his Wikipedia and reading up on the Porter family of Columbia, Missouri. A lot of interesting stuff here, but a lot of interesting stuff in the NFL draft, Lawrence. And someone you've been talking about since well before draft season, since last summer, college football season, is Shedeur Sanders. He's kind of taking his pre-draft lumps, not at all looking like he's for sure falling out of the first round or anything like that, but appears he's fallen out of the top 3. Where do you think he goes? First round, or does he turn into like like late first, early second, like Lamar Jackson, Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton, that kind of area? Or do you think he's a safe first rounder? Where do you think he ends up? But where do you hope he ends up? Shedeur Sanders.
I think he's still in play for the number 2 or number 3 pick. I think that's still in play, even though it may not seem as likely now, but I still think it's in play. I would say I would guess that the betting favorite would be the Saints right now for him to go to. I know a couple of days ago, the Saints had the 3rd best odds to land Shedeur Sanders, but at this point, I haven't seen anything to make me believe that he'll completely fall out of the first round or even, at the end of the first round. But it's definitely going to be interesting. What I will concede is that he probably ain't going number 1, which will go to Cam Ward, who is very deserving and should, he should go number 1. He deserves that.
He does. Cam Ward would be who I would take at number 1 overall. Do you have a good comp for Shedeur Sanders? Because I've been falling on some what feel like kind of disrespectful comps, but he reminds me kind of like Derek Carr in his prime, the guy who could be replacing on the Saints, hopefully a better version of Derek Carr, maybe even an Andy Dalton type, or like a guy who isn't known for like a huge arm necessarily, but who's like a 10 or 12-year starter in the NFL, is known more for like accuracy and like pace and not necessarily like big explosive plays. But do you think that's inaccurate? Like who even comes to mind?
Well, you got I'll do you one better, Pat and Denny. Joe Burrow.
Same type of skill set. It is.
Not coming into the draft, wasn't known for having a big arm, but definitely known for having an accurate one. He was known for being a guy who's been ready. He had played a lot of football. He's very poised, Joe Burrow is, and obviously we see him doing that on the NFL level. But a lot of what you hear Shedeur Sanders critics say is, well, it's a lot of catch and run for guys like Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn Jr., the Colorado receivers. But there's similar things that go on in the Bengals offense when you got a guy like Jamar Chase. He's a big catch and run guy, but then you can also see Joe Burrow accurately throw the ball up to a guy like a T. Higgins. For Shedeur Sanders, that was Will Shepherd. That was his big receiver there. So a lot of similarities there, very similar athletically, whereas they're not the most athletic and the most mobile guy, but plenty mobile and athletic enough to kind of make a play here and there if you need it. The thing with Shedeur, and I think everybody knows it at this point, he's actually even said it himself when they asked him what he could work on, and that's backing up in the pocket. So
he does love to back up in the pocket.
Yeah, and I would say a little bit of Drew Brees too. He's similar as far as like not big arm, but we never seen a guy like Drew Brees or Joe Burrow hindered by by their arms not being able to throw the ball 70 yards.
Yeah, I do feel like Shedeur is very on time. And I really like, I don't know if I like the Joe Burrow comp as like overall quarterback. I do love the Joe Burrow athletic comp. Very, very similar athleticism.
I had a couple stats on just how accurate Shedeur Sanders has been at Colorado. Last year, second highest rate of catchable balls among all quarterbacks, highest adjusted completion rate at 83%, which is really, really something. His average depth of target was only 8. That ranks 78th out of 90 qualifying quarterbacks. He took a lot of sacks that could have been due to a really porous Colorado offensive line. But the accuracy is real, and I think it can translate. It has usually translated to the pro level, and that's what I remember hearing about when the Titans seems more torn between Sanders or Ward. They were talking about Sanders' ability to just get the ball there on time and anticipate throws. In that way, Lawrence, I wanted to ask you. I've seen the Tua comp with Shedeur Sanders. Does that hold any water for you?
I've actually, there was somebody, I forget who it was, somebody famous, more famous than us, who said to but it's a time. Yeah, you could say that because they're both timing throwers. They're both anticipatory throwers of the football. And it's funny you bring up Tua, right? Because, they talk about the lack of strength in Shadeur's arm, but if you notice, the last two guys to lead the NFL in passing yards was Joe Burrow and Tua. And you know who actually made that comp, Pat, to Joe Burrow? It was Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach. He didn't make it before me, but he made it nonetheless. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say he didn't get it from me. But
you never know. You never know who's watching, Lawrence.
But yeah, there's you know what I saw, Denny? Somebody said the Dolphins should draft Shedeur, trade Tua because you could get out of his. It was something
something that would never happen.
Yeah,
that's a good call. I like that.
Yeah, it was like, it's crazy. It's not gonna happen, but just something to think about.
I actually remember saying that, and not to become a thought leader or anything, but I remember thinking the Dolphins should just draft Bo Nix and just get rid of Tua. Bo Nix can do what Tua's doing.
Yeah, I don't know if Bo Nix would have done it. I don't think I don't know if he that type of quarterback that could run that type of offense. I don't want him going out there looking like Tyler Huntley trying to run the
Shedeur, unlike Tua, can also take a sack. We do know that Shedeur, not that Tua is not tough, but we know Shedeur is extremely tough. I would have stood.
And Shedeur is more athletic than Tua. Tua used to be pretty nifty, like Alabama rookie year. But then I don't know, he just not like that no more. It's like how Dak Prescott used to be able to run the ball, but now
Dak doesn't do that at all.
No.
So I hope that never happened to Shedeur.
No,
just keep what you got.
Lawrence, I have an article up on Rotoworld.
Don't read it. Don't read it.
That I'm just raising some questions about Travis Hunter's statistical profile of Colorado. Okay.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, do you think that profile would have been, elite, like unquestionable, if he had just been a full-time wide receiver? That's the factor that I couldn't really grapple with in writing the article. Do you think that would have made the difference in as far as his receiving profile goes?
I think it would be there's a lot of people that say, well, he might be the best receiver, he might be the best corner. But if he only played one position, whether it was corner or receiver, he already is the number one receiver in this draft. But it'd be easier to say it if he only played wide receiver. From a statistical standpoint, I won't say that if he didn't play corner that he would have had 130 catches for 1,800 yards, because at the end of the day, you still played the same amount of snaps on offense that you would have played, right? You just would have had, quote unquote, more energy. But I mean,
how do you quantify that? I don't know.
He would have, he won the best receiver award in college.
Curious, Denny.
Also won the best defensive player, but also didn't win the best defense. It's really weird stuff.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there.
It's great and it's weird. And as far as he goes, we've talked about this in the past on Happy Hour. You get a guy like Travis Hunter, and look, none of us know how many snaps he will play on either side of the ball, because I do believe that different teams see him as something different or see him how they want to use him very differently. But if he's a guy that plays 25 to 30 offensive snaps, that will be well good enough for him to be picked up in fantasy drafts. Because think about it. You guys was just talking about Tutu Atwell. Like, haven't we started or had to start Tutu Atwell in leagues before?
Yes.
Right. If a guy like Travis Hunter is getting 25-ish offensive snaps, that's, you got to think he's going to get at least 6 or 7 opportunities to get the football, because that's his game on offense. It's about getting the ball in his hands and using that quick first step that he has. So it's not necessarily, him always routing some DB up. It's about getting the ball in his hands and letting him work that way.
Can I tell you guys something about Travis Hunter's landing spot? I'm so afraid that it's going to be New England, because Mike Vrabel doesn't want anything to do with a fun player. Like Mike Vrabel's not going to use this guy correctly. I don't want it to be get him to Cleveland, get him anywhere, but not the Patriots.
I actually would agree with that. Get him to Cleveland too, because Josh McDaniels too, if he ends up, he's not technically perfect, so we're not even gonna bother with that. Like
that is true. I will say, and it may not matter anymore because it is Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels there, as opposed to Gerard Mayo and Bill Belichick. But Marcus Jones for the Patriots, who plays corner, he's played some receiver in the past. But again, who knows what, like, they may have come in now and say, you know what, Marcus Jones is just going to be a defensive player, which would, I don't know, it'd be crazy, but at the same time, not, because you have what seems like 24 wide receivers under the age of 24 on the roster already.
No, cannot be the Patriots. I'm always prepared to disagree with Denny. I immediately agreed. It cannot be the Patriots.
I don't think it'll be the Patriots.
I don't think so. I think it will be the Browns. And
I think it'll be some top 3 team. It'll be Browns or the Giants.
Take a special player. And
I just don't see how you don't take that dude, especially if you're the Giants. Like, it's perfect for him to become the wide receiver 2 or 3 on the Giants. And then for the Giants, you have him on defense as well. Same thing goes for Cleveland. You got Jerry Jeudy there. So it's not like Travis Hunter is coming in to be wide receiver 1 for any team,
That would be, yes, has to be the ideal outcome for him. Come in somewhere where he does not have to be the number 1 from day one. It could actually not develop slowly, but not just have to develop like that, where he actually has some time.
We say this now, and then like week 1, the Giants going to be losing like 32-10, but Travis Hunter got 10 catches for 102 yards and no touchdowns.
We will not.
Hey, we'll take it. I'll take that stat.
Yeah,
we will take a short break. We'll be right back after this. This Saturday, the future of basketball hits the hardwood in Portland, Oregon, as USA's finest take on some of the best talent the rest of the world has to offer. It's the Nike Hoop Summit. The women's game is at 7 p.m., followed by the men's at 10 p.m. Eastern on USA and Peacock. We're going to be talking so much more about Travis Hunter. We're talking a lot more the past few days, Lawrence, about Jalen Milroe. He was invited to attend the draft in person, which raised some eyebrows because it suggests, they're thinking he might go on day 1, or thinking he's going to go on day 1. He's also apparently put in a good workout for, what were the 2 teams?
It was Saints and Browns.
Yeah. Saints and Browns. He was making waves in his workout, according to Fox's Jordan Schultz. It seems, again, I always try to make this point. It seems like his perceived stock is rising because, like, we're just guessing a lot of times what a player's actual draft stock is. Maybe he was higher all along in NFL front offices. But do you have a strong take on Jalen Milroe? We know you've had a take on Shedeur for a long time. What's your take on Mr. Jalen?
Yeah, look, after when Alabama played UGA this past season and Jalen Milroe went completely off for 374 passing yards, couple touchdowns. I was saying he could be a top 10 pick. I don't feel like that today. I do still, however, feel like he's a guy you definitely take in the second round. But if one of these teams were to, either take him at the end of the first round or come back into end of the first round and take him, then I wouldn't be mad at it. Regardless, he's a player that you should be looking to develop him, kind of match up what he needs to work on with what he does well. Have him sit behind somebody for a little while as a second round pick there. But I think it's saying a lot that he's been invited to a draft, especially when they said it's been reported that they don't want to have the Will Levis situation happen again. So that's kind of speaking volumes right there. Jalen Milroe had it wasn't he wasn't his best down the stretch of the 2024 season, but it's like he played other games and seasons too. So when you take it all in totality, it's just like, hey, what can we, just like any quarterback, what does he do well and how can we help him get better? He's not going to be a guy who starts out the gate and then you just go from there with it.
Yeah, he could be destined, I feel like, for the Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson memorial pick at number 32 overall. But again, if they thought he was going to be number 32, I don't think they're inviting him to the draft in Green Bay. So it is a really
that too. Like, it's Green Bay. Like, if I'm Jalen Milroe, do I want to go? All right, let me not make it seem like I'm trying to make. I never been to Green Bay, so I wouldn't even know. But there's probably a reason I never been to Green Bay. But anyway, do you think Jalen Milroe would go to Green Bay? Just, I don't know. Maybe he just want to get the experience or whatever.
Maybe he likes cheese. You know, that's
maybe.
a possibility.
Maybe. But that was an interesting thing, especially that coupled with the fact that he met with the Saints and the Browns, two teams that do need quarterbacks. So we just have to see what happens there.
Yeah, it's Lawrence. It is the kind of thing where it can be tempting to read too much into it, but there's really only one thing you can read into it, and it's that they think he's going to go in the first round.
I'll say this too, Pat. When we talking dynasty formats here, and you got a rookie draft coming up right now, Jalen Milroe would go. He's going as a second to third round pick in a dynasty rookie draft. Could you imagine if he is the pick number 32? That goes up drastically in a super flex dynasty rookie draft. So, the value's going to his value's going to change for the worse or for the better after this NFL draft.
Totally great point about how you cannot ignore real life draft value in dynasty leagues. And if there's a team that values them enough where they want that fifth year team option, you're absolutely right that it tells you a ton in dynasty. Enough about the QBs. Denny wants to ask you about a running back.
Yeah. So we mentioned on last week's show with Kyle, Omarion Hampton of North Carolina. We talked about some good landing spots. Obviously, Denver came up. Sean Payton can't stop talking about a pass catching running back for his offense because he's always like that. Seems like a natural fit. We wanted to ask you where you would prefer to see Hampton land in the draft.
Where I would prefer to see him, I would probably go with Kyle and say the Broncos there, because they still have, I think their top running back right now is Jaleel McLaughlin. So if Omarion Hampton goes there, and especially in the first round, you already know what it is. Like, I mean, he's already being talked about as the second pick in a rookie dynasty drafts behind Ashton Genty. And you talked about a pass catching running back. This is somebody who's done that the past couple years at North Carolina, catching 29 receptions the year with Drake May. This past year, he upped that to 38 receptions. So not just a guy who could get in between the tackles and got burst through the line and could take it a home run at 220. Also a guy that could catch the ball out of the backfield. So I would say, Denver, Dallas would be nice.
I was going to ask you, are we on a Omarion Hampton watch at Dallas at number 12?
Yeah, I don't see why not, especially if Genty goes 6.
Which
there's gonna be some urgency because look, I said this last week. The Raiders, Bears, Broncos, Cowboys all can't draft Hampton and Genty. Those are 4 teams that could use a running back, right? That's why I think 3 will sneak into the first round. But we could see them, especially with the success that Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs have had recently. Don't count the last year's running back class because we know that class wasn't as good. With the success of those guys, teams might be saying, hey, look, if we're going to take them in the second round, well, hell, why not just take him now if he's this good? And Omarion Hampton is. And I actually think the gap between him and Ashton Genty is a lot closer than what most people think.
That's what I was. My follow-up is this: Lawrence, can Hampton be better in fantasy than Ashton Genty?
No. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, stop.
Although
I agree.
No, he could. Like,
we can't have guys coming on the show and saying this.
It's just like, look, it's like Bijan Robinson went 8 to the Falcons, Gibbs went 12 to the Lions, and Gibbs out the gate was better. He's been better in fantasy the past 2 seasons.
That's neither here nor there. Yeah.
Jahmyr Gibbs was a running back 2, and he's splitting the touches with David Montgomery, and he's still better than Bijan in fantasy. So Omarion Hampton absolutely could. Now, if Ashton Genty finds himself on the Chicago Bears, then I believe that Ashton Genty will end up having the better season. The question will be, does he even last that long? But if you get a guy like Hampton on the Cowboys, people are forgetting about the Cowboys because Dak was hurt. That's still going to be a good offense. It's still going to be an offense you have to stop with Dak and CD and those guys. Like, you put him in there on Dallas, then we really talking about something.
But by the way, to bring that all full circle, the Falcons love to do the most nonsensical thing possible. It means they will take Omarion Hampton.
Oh, man.
Compare him.
The craziest thing about you saying that is it's not crazy.
No, it would be, but it's not. To bring the whole show full circle, Lawrence, take us home on this one. Have a minute or two to you said you made it dovetail perfectly with our final question, where you think a third running back might sneak into the first round. Who do you think the odds-on favorite is to be the RB3 in a class where it definitely appears it's Genty RB1, Hampton RB2? Yeah. Lawrence, you take us home.
I would think it would be, I feel like it should be Trevion Henderson out of Ohio State, the most explosive back, got a lot of experience, small guy, but doesn't run small. He's really the guy who could do everything. And like I said, all 4 of those teams can't draft 2 guys. And then look at teams could surprise us at the end of the draft. Teams like the Chiefs, we know they're not shy about taking a first round back. Teams like the Commanders could surprise us and take a running back if they're not okay with just Brian Robinson. So I think Trevion Henderson will sneak into that first round, but definitely 3 running backs.
Maybe the Texans, maybe the Rams. The Rams love to do weird iconoclastic things where there could, I totally agree, because Hampton, it seems like, I was not going to escape the top 16 at this point.
I don't think so.
I can't see him going mid-20s or 20 anything. That's why the Broncos, who are at 20, I'm like, if that's what you – but then again, trading up to get the running back would be interesting too. So we'll just have to see how it shake out.
It helps the running backs too, that we know every front office knows running back's not the first position you should be taking in the first round. But it helps that the last several who have gone in the first round have paid off.
If you have everything, like the Bears went out and rebuilt the interior offensive line, like that puts you in a spot to actually make a move like that. It's actually funny too. Ashton Genty said, hopefully I go to a team with a good old line. 1 month later, the Bears got 3 new offensive linemen. So
makes you why would they be doing that? Makes you curious, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we'll see.
Lawrence, people are probably curious what you have going on. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and talk about the draft. What do you have going on right now? Where are you making appearances? Things of that nature.
It's off season, so here.
Here for one,
fantasy football happy hour. We gonna be doing a lot of draft stuff. So stay locked on that and stay locked on this show that you're watching right now. People with Pat and Denny and Kyle.
Thank you very much. Fantasy football happy hour. Connor Rogers, like we said earlier, so much draft stuff. Denny's got his Travis Hunter article up. I'll have my non-draft article, coach rankings, up on Thursday. Be on the lookout. We're going to talk about that with Kyle. So for Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you so much to Lawrence Jackson for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday with your friend, Kyle Dvorak.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.